like firstborn, don't you, Squidward?
So often cast aside for being too short. No more. I am going to show you why you will never say, I like Firstborn, but I don't like how short they look next to Primaris. We're going to increase the height of Firstborn without using Primaris, including each armor mark that GW has a kit for at the time of this video coming out. I was going to include Terminators in this video as well, but it's going to take some more time, so it's going to be its own video. But Scouts already have their own video you can see here. But won't it be hard? Don't you need to be super good at green stuff? No. First of all, if you're not confident in your sculpting, I encourage you to watch this video. In fact, the method I'm going to show you is one of the things I say to get better. But second of all, if you refuse to use green stuff at all, I've still got a few tricks for you. So with all that out of the way, let's get to it. The easiest, the best method is to extend the belly. It works on just about every model, though those who have a monopose body and legs are a bit harder. But basically, we just cut out the belt of the body, and we either glue them to the legs, or sometimes I just remake the belt out of green stuff. Then I use hot glue to extend his chest, though you could use whatever, like a bit of sprue or something. Just don't use wire. That's how I did it in my first video, and never again. It's just not strong enough to hold the green stuff that we're gonna wrap around his waist. Then sometimes I'll use my knife to sculpt lines to show that it's like the Under Armour. Sometimes I go wide, and sometimes I go thin. Sometimes I leave it smooth. It depends on what? I don't know. But of course, that's not the end of it. Generally, their legs need to be extended too. And for Mark 4, 6, 7, and 8, it's relatively similar to what we did before, just on a smaller scale and 4 times. So we cut here, 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 and here. Now it is a bit hard to cut with just a knife. You can even see me struggling here, but that's because there really is something about being on camera that makes it way harder. So if you ever struggle to do this, I'd check your surroundings a bit more. But you may think to use your sprue cutters to get through. It will. Okay, well, it'll also do that. I genuinely don't know where that went. But the main thing is it can get a bit messy. If you do it on a smaller space, you're going to mess it up. And given the whole reason we're doing this, you may not have all that much room. So only do it in places where you have plenty of room, and even then, you may still mess it up. So do it at your own risk. But after we cut the legs up, then just like before, hot glue or whatever, then smooth it out with green stuff. Now this part can be tricky, so sometimes I snip away the edges to make it a bit easier. But you just have to keep at it. You will probably mess it up. Sometimes you think it looks good, then you prime it and you can see where you messed it up. It's okay, that's how you learn. And the thing is, it's better to overfill it, because you can always cut it back, and it's a bit easier to smooth. But if it's just not good enough, you can always just cover it up with a purity seal, or robes, or whatever. But for most people, that's it. True or true scale. But there are some legs that are just too detailed, and we can't cut through them without messing it up, whether it be Mark 4 or just veterans. But we can still make them taller. See, Marines tend to have a very wide stance, so if we just cut the legs at the joint and put them a bit closer, they're taller. Not as tall as they may be with the other method, but we just have to put a bit more into the torso, or put some tactical rocks on his base. Hey, there's a reason GW does it so often. It does work. Now, there's one method that I've used in the past, but I wouldn't recommend it in most cases. It's really for extending your models that you've already made. You can snap their torsos from their legs and put a bit of hot glue in between, and it's not the best looking, and I wouldn't recommend it unless it's your only choice. And even then, you know, they're not that bad as is. That's right. The whole point of the tutorial is that you don't need to follow it. Having a couple shorter guys with your tall guys doesn't look as bad as you might think. Yeah, right next to each other is a bit weird, but in an army, they don't really stand out from each other. So let's recap real quick. We can extend the torsos of most Marines by cutting off the belt and putting some green stuff in there. We can do a similar thing for the legs of Mark IV and Mark VII. Mark VI and Mark VIII are taller than most, but if you want them to be as tall as Primaris, you're gonna have to make them taller too. For Mark III and any legs that have fancy stuff, we can put them a bit closer together, but you're gonna need to make their torso even longer. But we don't need to make them taller all the time. They look fine. And there's also tactical rocks.